Well, the Zags are coming off of a enormous win versus Pacific, Damon Stoudemire's team on Saturday. And I'll tell you what, people are giving, they say, oh, it's just Pacific, it's the WCC, Zags don't play anyone in conference. That Pacific team may not be as lowly rated as a lot of people think.
Yeah, the WCC has come a long ways. We've talked about this on a number of different clips this year. They've been the 5th or 6th best conference in the country. And when it comes to Pacific, this is a team the Zags absolutely ran out of the building. Pacific was ranked, I think, I want to say it's like 127 in KenPom, which is equivalent to Nebraska, who just lost to Michigan by 11 points. They are almost the same KenPom ranking. Michigan beat them by 11. Zags beat Pacific by...
Almost 50.
Almost 50.
Yeah.
What this team is doing... if you watch the Mark Few show, you saw Drew Timme say they took last week's games. They felt they were closer than they should have been.
Sure.
And Timme and the players took it personally. And the coaches told them to do something about it. And unfortunately for Pacific, they were on the wrong end of that schedule. And these guys had something to prove.
Yeah, a week of practice definitely did the Zags well. I think a lot of people were looking to see if Gonzaga would schedule a non-conference game.
Sure.
Really saw a lot different Zags team after a good week of practice. But that's what we want to dive into today is, if you're not familiar, evanmaya.com, he does rankings, ratings for teams, players. And Gonzaga now actually has 3 of the top 4 players
Seems
on
good.
his player rankings. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
They have 5, 4 in the top 8, 5 in the top 11, and 6 players in the top 15 in the nation. That 15th is Andrew Nembhard, who doesn't even start for number 1 Gonzaga, coming in at number 15. Anton Watson is the 11th ranked player in the country. Joel Ayayi comes in at 8. Jalen Suggs at 4. Drew Timme at 2. And Corey Kispert is ranked number 1.
Yeah, it's truly incredible to see how deep this team is. You see the analytics, they back up what a lot of people have seen and said. And I think really what this does for me is it really shows you what the pollsters and the other coaches in the country have been seeing out of Gonzaga this season. We've seen Gonzaga hold 62 to 63 of the available 64 first-place votes in the AP poll. They've been number 1 in the coaches poll every week. And every week that question persists, is Gonzaga actually better than Baylor? But Baylor just has never made up that room in those polls. And you sit back and you're kind of wondering why. And all of a sudden you start looking deeper into these analytics and these ratings. And if you don't watch Gonzaga every night like we do, most fans in this country are not seeing them every game. You don't realize how deep this team is. And we say it over and over. It feels like, you're kicking a dead horse a little bit with the argument, but it just truly is impressive. And my favorite thing out of those rankings, number 1, Corey Kispert, is so far and away above everybody else in these rankings. The overall efficiency ranking has Corey Kispert at 109. Drew Timme comes in at a 104. And the next highest player is Jared Butler out of Baylor at a 93.6. That's 16 points below Corey Kispert. So Zag fans, enjoy it. What we're seeing is truly special. And Evan Maya, your rankings, your analytics, do a good job of just putting that into perspective for us.
Well, let's just explain a little what these rankings mean. So really, they take OBPR, DBPR, and BPR.
Sure.
And OBPR stands for Offensive Bayesian Performance Rating. I have no idea what Bayesian means. I heard it's beautiful this time of year. But what it really means is that it reflects the offensive value a player brings to his team while he's on the court. DBPR, same thing for defensive, and BPR is really the sum of offense, defensive when they're on the court.
Sure.
When I see these ratings, I think it's a testament to how well these guys play together.
Yes.
We talk all the time how they're so talented, they're so deep, but the way that this team has gelled, I believe, I have been getting a question a lot recently. Drew, do you think that this is the best team in Gonzaga history? And I answer the question by this. If they make the Final Four, they're in the conversation. Until they do that, you can't compare them to 2016, 2017's team, the national championship team.
Fair.
Until that happens.
National champions.
And then I say, do I think they're the most talented? Yes, I do. I will now go as far to say is I think this team plays together better than any team, especially on the offensive end. Better than any team that Mark Few's had. I don't think anyone really believes that Anton Watson is the 11th best player in the nation. Nothing on Anton. I just think that these numbers and these efficiency rankings completely show you that when all these guys are on the floor together, the ball moves, and the ball moves really well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great point. It really does show how well they play together. And I think one of the hardest things, I mean, you got to realize how hard it is to have multiple players so highly rated in efficiency, because efficiency requires usage. And that's one thing a lot of guys don't really follow a lot of times, but the ball moves. Like you said, it doesn't stick. Every one of these guys we listed all gets theirs. They've all had a game where it feels like they were the dude this year and they got a ball out. But I think the Zags are, third in the country in assists, and it's no surprise. You look at how they play basketball, you watch it, and if you're a basketball purist out there, you absolutely love it because the ball never sticks, and it's what makes them so hard to guard. And now you're seeing guys like, Andrew Nembhard. He ranks pretty highly in the offensive efficiency ratings. That's why he's in the top 15 is due to his offensive rating. And you watch his last 3 games, and all of a sudden now he's shooting 35% from 3, and this team gets that much harder to guard. So, for me, again, I mean, I love the fact that he said it shows how well they play together, but it really shows how far they're separating themselves towards that number 1 overall seed.
Well, they had a play on Saturday that you could have said that this came from a Harlem Globetrotters game.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs was saving the ball out of bounds, throws off his back foot to Joel Ayayi at half court. He pushes it up to Timmy, who throws a behind-the-back pass for 2. And you just need to show that play and then understand why these ratings are at where they're at. The chemistry these guys have, the way they play together. Yeah. I think that this team is so good offensively that the national narrative a lot is, well, we know Gonzaga is the best team in the country offensively. That's where it started to shift.
Yep.
But these rankings take offense and defense into account. You have 3 Zags in the top 10 defensively as well. I don't think that they're getting as much credit as they should on the other end of the floor.
No, absolutely not.
I do think in non-conference play versus Kansas, versus West Virginia, they weren't really, playing on a line together. The defense, we could see, wow, the offense is there. If the defense comes around, this team's going to be unbeatable. It really feels like over the last 30 days, this defense has taken an enormous step.
Yeah, Ken Palm Rankings has the Zags defense now, I think, up to 11 in the country, if I'm not mistaken on that. What is it, the 3rd best offense, 4th best offense? No, they're 2nd, I believe. They're right behind Iowa. Right behind Iowa in offense, and they're 11th in the country defensively. And it does show you, man. I mean, like we said, let's just go back to Pacific. They're not what people make them out to be. Nobody's out here ragging on Nebraska for losing to Michigan by 11, right? Nobody's out there saying how terrible they are, how terrible the conference is. There's just the stigma around it. But what the Zags did to them is truly eye-opening.
Yeah.
And again, the people that know more than us that rank these teams are already aware of this. And this is why we've seen things shake out the way it is. But I tell you what, man, Mark Few has said multiple times over the last few weeks that he still wants to play Baylor. And at this point, it's going to take a cancellation.
I'd be down for that.
It'd be okay. It's going to take a cancellation of the schedule for both teams on the same day. But I think if it happens, color it this way. I think if anything even looks questionable on the same day for those 2 teams, they're just going to make sure those games get canceled. If they even look questionable to play this one. Both teams want it. It's going to prepare them both for the tournament. They know that. And, I mean, it would really put to bed a lot of the arguments. I tell you that.
I finally had a chance to watch quite a few Baylor games, and they are a very good team. But I'll tell you what, I watched that Baylor team. They can shoot the ball. If they're hitting from 3, their game on Saturday, they played Oklahoma State without Cade Cunningham. And OK State really stayed in the game for about 30 minutes.
Sure.
And then over the span of about 90 seconds, they were able to go up 12, just like that. They were down 1. hit 3-4 threes, and they completely change that
They're
game.
just relentless, man. They just feels like they keep chipping until you just give in.
They are, but I've watched enough Baylor now that I really do think that if the Zags caught Baylor on their best day, I don't think Gonzaga needs to be on their best to beat this Baylor Bears team. I think that it's Gonzaga, Baylor, and then I think it's really everybody else.
Yeah, fully agreed.
Obviously, both these teams can lose. Obviously, Baylor can beat Gonzaga. But watching as much Gonzaga as I do, and having now watched a few different Baylor games, I see a pretty large difference between these two squads.
Yeah, I really do as well. It's one of those, of course, people are going to sit here, they're going to say we're biased. I can already see the comments coming on
100% correct.
And you are for sure correct, but we're not alone in it. I mean, again, Baylor played great last week, and they took one first-place vote away coming in last week. I mean, and they played great basketball. It shows you how highly Gonzaga is viewed in college basketball this year. And it's just because, I'm sorry, I mean, they are the best defensive team, sure. But even then, it is extremely difficult to shut down 5 people at once. Even if you're the best defensive team in the country. Normally, you're worried about shutting down a maximum of 2 players. In college, that's typically what it is, right? You face the best teams. If we neutralize the point guard, we neutralize the center, or whoever it may be, we're going to win this basketball game. You do that against Gonzaga, and great, you've still got Jalen Suggs or Corey Kispert or Joel Yai or Andrew Nemhard.
Yeah, let's just say Suggs gets in foul trouble. Yeah. Now you've got the number 15 ranked player in the country coming in to take his spot.
Yeah, you don't get a breather, and that's what people just don't realize is even though when the bench comes in, there's still no breather. The offense runs just as smooth. It may change a little bit, but, I mean, it's just as potent. And for Baylor, I mean, it just feels like Baylor absolutely has to play their best basketball to beat Gonzaga. And we've seen it, man. Gonzaga's 15-0, 14 games. They've scored 85 or more points. And that's really what it comes down to is you have to score to keep up with Gonzaga because everything shows us that even if you're a good defense, you're not shutting them down entirely, so you got to keep up.
Well, a couple other things I want to look at on these Evan Maya stats real quick is Luka Garza actually is the most efficient offensive player in the country at a 79.5. Kispert's a 70.
Yeah.
But Garza's defensive rating comes in at 10.6, where a guy like Kispert's at 39. A lot of the guys in the top here are at 30. There's a guy by the name of McKinley Wright out of Houston that's getting 45 on the defensive end. And another one that I think stands out is Cade Cunningham, that the narrative I think's changed a little bit, that he's now expected to be the number 1 overall pick. Well, he's all the way down there at 30 overall. And so you got Jalen Suggs, our boy, down there at 4, Cade Cunningham at 30. So
it's a little bit in between there.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun as WCC play rolls on. I do believe that we're just days away from hearing some sort of announcement that the Zags did pick up another non-conference game.
Sure.
I know that on the national narrative, the Zags get a little lost as they get into WCC play. But as January is rolling down, we're just a month away from the weather getting a little bit warmer and March Madness getting into the air. And I will tell you what, I cannot wait.